everyone, welcome to the first official episode of Med School with Molly. Since my med school has not started yet, I figured I would do some pre-med videos right now. Today I'm going to go over a brief introduction of the medical school application process. First, we'll talk about, what to do to prepare for the application, and then second, we'll go over a timeline of all the different steps throughout the process, and then after we go through that, I'm going to do kind of a breakdown of each of those steps. So the first thing we're going to be talking about is kind of the preparation for the application. Depending on if you're in college or out of college, this might vary for everybody, but approximately it's around 2 to 4 years of preparation. It's getting the prerequisites, getting letters of recommendation, getting experience mainly. I don't really have too much to say about the preparation part in this video, but I did want to give you guys 3 pieces of advice. So first piece of advice, this time that you have, whether you're in college, out of college, before college, this is the time to gain experience. And what I mean by that is clinical experience. So you could have 100 different activities under your belt. But if you don't have clinical experience, paid clinical experience, then medical schools won't really know if you're serious about medicine or not. Second piece of advice I can give you guys is that grades are important, but medical schools do appreciate improvement. Example of my own life, in my freshman year, I had, okay grades, but I knew that I wanted to go to medical school. I was able to figure out what I was doing wrong and fast, because even though you can turn your grades around, you only have a short time span where you can actually do that. And the third piece of advice that I can give you guys is to find your niche. Find something that defines who you are and what you value. For example, when I was in college, I came across a women empowerment organization that I absolutely fell in love with. Our job was to mentor children from underserved areas, and it was amazing. As a team member, I could eventually work my way up to leadership positions where I could eventually make an impact. I'm just going to give you guys a brief timeline of what my application process looked like. This is just to serve as an example, so if you're applying next year or in a couple years, the process will still be the same, the years will just be different. So we are now in July right here. I'll be attending in August, specifically August 3rd. That's when I'm going to start my first day. But I actually submitted my very first application all the way in 2019 in June. So this is usually where it's most common to submit your primary application. Obviously, many people can submit it way later depending on your situation, but this is just when I did it. Now we move to July of 2019. That's when I started to receive my secondary applications. In August, this is when the interview season begins, and it will carry through all the way until mid-March, end of March. All right, now we head to April. This is when most decisions, April of 2020, when most decisions have been sent out to applicants. So if you've been waitlisted, rejected, accepted, etc. Now let's go over the steps in more detail. So now that we've talked about kind of the timeline of each of these steps, I wanted to go over each of them in detail. The first step to that process is the primary application. The 3 main things with the primary application is your personal statement, letters of recommendation, and your 15 meaningful experiences. So secondary applications are the next step. What secondary applications are is your medical schools that you've applied to have seen your primary application. They're pretty interested in you generally, but they want to know more about what you can bring to their school. They ask specific questions about the school itself as well as you. Tell me a hardship you faced. Why do you think you should be at this school? Tell us about a constructive criticism you've received and how you dealt with it. Most important thing I can tell you guys about this is that whatever obstacle or hardship or criticism that you're talking about, you want to emphasize what you learned from it and how you grew from it. It's not so much the difficult part that you had to overcome, but how you overcame it. The third step to the application, I didn't put it on our timeline, but it is still very important. It's called the Casper exam. Now, if you're applying to a large number of schools, chances are one, if not many of the schools you've applied to will require this exam. It's an exam that measures personal traits about you. And a lot of people say that you can't really study for the exam, that you kind of should just take it, but I truly believe that you can study for it. So there are many resources out there if you need to get help. So the fourth step to this process is the interview. Now, interviews can either be traditional or multiple mini interview style format. Traditional interviews can either be one-on-one with a physician, one-on-one with a staff member at the medical college, or one-on-one with a student. So it really depends on what school you're applying to. They will kind of tell you when you actually get the interview. MMIs are a little different because they are not just one person that you're meeting with. You're actually meeting with, I believe, 6 to 10 people. They consist of stations. You've got about 2 minutes to read your situation and decide what you're gonna do, and then you walk in a room and have a conversation between 6 to 8 minutes with someone else who's in the room who is evaluating you. Once you've submitted your primary application, you've submitted your secondary application, you got the interview, and now you're in the waiting mode. You're waiting for that decision. And post-interview decisions can range anywhere from 2 weeks to over 4 months to get back to you. So for me, one of my interviews, I got back, I believe, 2 weeks after I went to the interview, but the other interview I had took over 4 months to get here. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found it helpful. For my next video, I'm gonna be doing a pre-med Q&A. So make sure to turn your post notifications on. I'll be posting a picture on Instagram and either comment your questions or DM me. All right, thank you everybody. Make sure to like, subscribe, and follow Med School with Molly.